Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech,
And this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
and welcome back to the snobOS show, the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. We definitely want to thank you back to another episode. This is episode 154. This is the second to the last episode of the year, and we got a couple things to talk about in Apple. I didn't think there would be a lot of Apple news. We got a couple things that we can go over. But before we do that, we definitely want to thank all of our supporters. We just did our live show where we get to give away exclusive content that you won't find on the regular show. If you want to be a part of that, definitely become a Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/snobOScast. And for a little chump change a month, you'll get access to that live content and some other things. But for the actual show, we're going to move right into it, and we're going to get into the lowdown where we talk all things Apple. We talked about this last week because we kind of knew that iOS 15.2 was coming, and it did. Last Monday,
This Monday.
iOS 15.2 dropped, and it kind of dropped with all the things that we mentioned. So, but if you didn't listen to the show last week or you're not aware, you can download iOS 15.2. You can also download latest watchOS, iPadOS, excuse me, and the latest macOS. But again, we're only really concerned, or we only really care about iOS, so we'll go over the major things that they kind of released in iOS 15.2. The first one was the Apple Music voice plan. For those who don't know, you can pay a smaller, I think it's $5 a month, and only have access to Apple Music via voice. So via your watch, via HomePod if you have it, or via your iPhones, your iPads, your Macs. You just won't get that visual control that you would using Apple Music. You're paying for that monthly subscription for actual freaking Apple Music. Another thing is App Privacy Report. Now, Apple has been doing a lot for protecting you from privacy, letting you know when you download an app what things this app is going to collect and what things this app is going to share, but you haven't been able to actually see the report as a result of those things that are being shared or not being shared via apps, via Safari, via some of these other properties. So now you actually can view this report as a result of 15.2. Another thing, we'll get to it a little bit later, is a legacy contact. Now you can go in and assign somebody to be able to, of course, with the proof of a death certificate, if you pass, they will be able to download your data from your iPhone, pretty much your Apple ID. So contacts, photos, messages, voice memos, those things that you probably want somebody to have. If
Do you know if it includes the how the keychain, your Apple keychain? Did it say specifically? I don't think I
I
saw
don't
that
remember seeing
anywhere.
that. I think it's actual data. So I don't think
Mm,
you'll get access to anything specifically. I don't think Apple can give you the right, because in Apple Keychain you can use it as your password manager. So you can use Apple Keychain to get access to your bank, to
mhm.
any sort of financial things, or other personal stuff that I don't think
Right.
Apple has the right to give you access to.
Mm,
So my guess is no. But if you have hard data like photos,
mhm,
like for that you own, anything that you own, I own my own photos, I
mhm.
own my own voicemails, my own voice memos, I own my own contacts. And if somebody is looking to make sure that they can notify people on your behalf, if you've got family photos that you would want somebody to have, contacts, again, if, let's just say, if something were to happen to me and I assign Nica as my legacy contact, she can download my contacts, and then she can reach out to those people and say, this is what's going on, this is what we're doing, X, Y, and Z. So I think if I were to make an assumption, it would be data that I own. I can
Mhm.
assign to somebody as a legacy contact. They can then download that data, keep it, or do what they need to do with it.
Mhm.
Another thing is hide my email. You've always been able to do hide my email, but like I mentioned last week, you had to do it ahead of time, get the hide my email address, and then use that in an email or use that to sign up for a newsletter. Well, with this new update, as you're writing an email, if you decide you want to hide your email, you can do it right there as you're composing that email. And then the last one that I thought was interesting, iPhone parts and service history. This is not something that we mentioned last week, but basically, your iPhone will give you a diagnostic report of service schedules. So, like if you take it to Apple or you take it to an authorized Apple repair center and they do work, whether it be, running a diagnostic or any sort of tests, you'll be able to get that sort of report, and you'll be able to tell if companies are using genuine Apple parts like an Apple battery or Apple camera or a screen replacement, or are they using some Rudy Poot OEM,
Janky,
yeah,
yep.
janky parts. You'll be able to run this report rather. You'll be able to run this report and see what sort of parts and components are being put in or put on your device. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Mhm.
The
And
next
it's one
one,
of those
go
things where
ahead.
when we talked about it, what, last week, it was a release candidate, and then
Mhm.
less than a week later, they just, whoop, here we go.
Right,
Go
right.
update. It was very kind of to me, it felt kind of spur of the moment.
But yeah, I think those. But at the same time, I think these are pretty useful. A lot
Yeah.
of iOS updates are there may be one thing. I think all these are pretty
Yeah.
useful.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah. So speaking of updates, AirPods Pro, AirPods 3, original AirPods, and AirPods Max. There's a newest firmware version. This is version 4C165. Again, they really don't tell you what's in this firmware update, so you'll have to make sure you have the firmware update and then kind of play around to see if anything changed, if anything's better, improved, updated. But in order to do that, there's really no install process either. So if thinking of an iOS update, you go to settings, about or software update. You really can't run a AirPods firmware update. Basically, all you're doing is making sure that your devices, whether it be AirPods Pro, Max, AirPods 3, or just original ones, just make sure they're connected to your device. Make sure Bluetooth's turned on. Make sure they're actually connected. And then if you click the information button, you'll get to look at the firmware version number. If that firmware version is, like I mentioned, 4C 165, that means you got the most current version. If not, you may just have to disconnect and reconnect your devices and just wait for the firmware to actually get pulled down. So I wish they would kind of give you a little update, or little notes as to what they do update in the firmware, because Apple's all about music, all about sound, and they're tweaking things on a regular. So I think a little
Right.
notes about what they're doing, that probably
Notes would be helpful,
yeah,
and
right,
maybe just a little notification saying your AirPods Pro are on the latest version, or something, to that effect, so that you know that something actually changed would
right,
be, I
right.
think, nice.
All right, all right. So the next thing, Apple Watch is still out here saving folks' lives. The most recent thing that they put in the Apple Watch is fall detection. So if you whether it be riding a bike, whether it be running, whether it be doing activities, whatever, the jarring of your watch, there's some sensors that the watch can detect if you've taken a fall, and then automatically your watch can contact 911 or either some other emergencies. And looks like that's the case. An 85-year-old man living in Ottawa, Canada, was rescued by Ottawa police after receiving a 911 call from his Apple Watch. um, they just sent an automated message with coordinates, actually location information, came into the police communication center, which an operator used to get a specific address that she could then dispatch the police to. The operator could also hear breathing and a dog barking in the other end of the line. And after digging up a bit more, was able to get the name of the homeowner, providing all the necessary information to the officers who were responding to the actual call. So don't take those things for granted.
Yeah.
I would, especially, if you are active, we've seen stories of these people going hiking and then disappearing for 7 or 8 days or staying disappeared if you catch my
Yeah.
drift. You know, things that you don't think about or you just assume. You know, I'm trying to not say, okay, well, if you're old, you definitely need this, because that's not the case. Like I mentioned, there
No.
are people who, you know, full able-bodied people think, oh, I'll be all right. And then you be in a situation where you're not so much all right. And
Hello, I live alone. So if I have a lot of stairs in my house, so if I take a tumble down the stairs, my dog can't call 911. So,
right,
though and those type of things. And honestly, those are things that I literally think about. Like, what if something happens to me? How am I gonna alert somebody? But I usually always have my watch on. So I'm usually, have some sort of mechanism to contact someone if I don't have my phone on me.
right. It's better to need it, not have it than
Exactly.
what no,
Then
it's
need
better
it and
to
not have it.
right. It's better to have it and not need it than
Hmm.
need it and then not
And not
have it.
have it.
Right. So, you know, if you do have the cellular version, definitely want to get that cellular plan so it can actually make the phone call. I think that's the case with this one. He had the cellular version. The phone actually called instead of just sending a message. It actually called the people and she could hear the background noise and, you know, use that information to help the police officers actually find and rescue the guy. So just wanted to put that out there. You know, it's not just a gimmick. You know, it's not just something that Apple is using just to sell more
They
stuff.
have it. Yeah.
It's
It has
actually
actual purpose.
right. It's actually practical and, you know, it's actually useful, you know. All right. So, speaking of useful, speaking of the Apple Watch, this next story, you know, is actually goes the actual opposite of the previous story. The previous story, I talked about how Apple Watch is saving lives. According to this story right here, there is a class action lawsuit for Apple Watch owners who are saying that the Apple Watch is actually hurting them. For those who don't remember, I'd say back when the original Apple Watch came out, there were cases and there were stories where the battery inside the Apple Watch would swell, and as a result of swelling, it would pop the screen off. And if you're not careful, um, that screen being detached could possibly injure you. In the case of this one guy, he says he was riding on a golf cart. His Apple Watch screen popped off unbeknownst to him. And then when he reached down to um, grab something, you know, according to him, the detached screen sliced his forearm and cut a vein. So, according to him, you know, he had this danger. According to this class action lawsuit, Apple knew that the swelling was causing the screens to pop off. And according to the lawsuit, Apple could have done more to let folks know that the screen popping off could be an actual danger. So Apple did, previous to this lawsuit, they launched a repair program for swollen batteries in the Apple Watch Series 2 back in 2018. And then eligible devices were fixed free of charge. But America, you know, we are the lawsuit capital of the world. You know, some people may have looked at this and said, okay, you could have done more. So we're going to bring this class action lawsuit. And actually, um, Stephanie Humphrey, one of my co-hosts on the Tech John, she mentioned that this happened to her. She didn't get injured or anything like that, but she mentioned that the screen popped off on her Apple Watch unbeknownst to her,
Oh,
you
wow.
know, and you know, like I said, who knows what could have happened. Luckily, she wasn't wearing the watch, and it didn't cause her any issues. But this was a known issue, so known that Apple did in fact try to put out a repair program. Um, but again, you know, people have
Are they
freedom.
saying that the repair program wasn't sufficient?
I don't know. I think
I'm
what
trying to
they're
scan through it and I'm trying to figure out what their, you know,
well,
how I guess it.
they said the lawsuit includes that all Apple Watch models, with the exception of the new Series 7, and claims the devices are unreasonable safety hazards to consumers. It also says Apple uniformly failed to disclose the defect.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I don't see
The
how.
unreasonably safety hazards? That
Yeah,
sounds kind of crazy.
yeah, I don't see how Apple launching this repair program doesn't kind of disclose that there's an issue. But then I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
I don't know legalese like that. And again, like I
Yeah.
mentioned, this is lawsuit capital of the world. So
But the
um,
next sentence says battery swelling is a rare but real Apple Watch problem. So when it says unreasonable safety hazard, I think that might be, a bit of, razzle dazzle to help their lawsuit, I think.
It says a 2019 case accused Cupertino of fraudulent business practices and breach of warranty using many of the arguments outlined in this one. So basically, this was a known issue. According to this lawsuit, Apple could have done more. Apple could have disclosed. They could have done more. The fact that they didn't, this lawsuit is being brought up to, I guess, hold Apple accountable. So again, if you do have an older Apple Watch, at the very least, be careful.
Know that
But
this can
again,
happen.
additionally, I don't know if they're going to do anything with this class action lawsuit. But if you have experienced your Apple Watch screen popping off, you may be entitled to join this class action lawsuit where you get a couple bucks, I guess, at the very least.
Yeah.